dignitaries to take their seats. On behalf of IMC, I take great pleasure to welcome you all to the Foundation Day lecture today. As the tagline of IMC says, "Let noble thoughts come to me from all directions. Ano bhadra kratvo yantu vishvata." To that, if we look how all noble thoughts come to us, the way we find enlightening. As we say, tamso ma jyotirgamaya. To symbolize that, I would request our guests to please light the lamp so that we can symbolically, ceremonially see that in the presence of today's day. So today we have this to grace the occasion, DGIMC Dr. Anupama Bhatnagar, ADG Dr. Nimish Rustagi, and our distinguished speaker of the day, Sri Ashok Tandonji. Thank you so much, sir, ma'am. Now I would request Dr. Anupama Bhatnagar, DGIMC, to kindly felicitate Sri Ashok Tandonji with memento. I would also request Professor Govind Singh ji to kindly felicitate DGIMC Dr. Bhatnagar. Now I would like to request Professor Pramod Kumar to kindly felicitate Dr. Rustagi ji, ADG IMC. As we all know, today we are celebrating the Foundation Day of IIMC, and we have seen that this institute has built upon an institution which is continuously working towards the contribution in the society, not in the field of journalism, but also in the field of research, in the field of development communication, and so on and so forth. To highlight this occasion, I would request Dr. Bhatnagar, DGIMC, to kindly deliver welcome address and introduce the topic. Ma'am, please.
Good afternoon, namaskar. Respected Shri Ashok Tandonji, eminent journalist and a member of the Prasar Bharati board, Shri Nimish Rustagi ji, ADG IMC, learned faculty members, and all members of IMC family. First of all, I express my best wishes to the entire faculty, officers, and staff members on this 59th Foundation Day. On this day, we assess our past to secure our present and prepare ourselves for the future goals. In this journey of 58 years, undoubtedly, we have achieved a distinguished place in media education and have set benchmarks for other institutions to achieve. I am glad to share that next year on this day, we all will initiate the year-long Diamond Jubilee celebration. We have already started gearing up for the celebration. During these almost six decades, the IMC has been a name of its own kind, and now the world also acknowledges us. Looking at the consistent position of being number one in the top-ranked journalist training institutions, we can satisfactorily celebrate this achievement. On this occasion, I recall the hard work put in by all my predecessors in shaping these institutions and faculty members. During these 6 decades, the IMC has gifted many prominent faces to media. The IMC has also trained about 1,000 officers of the Indian Information Service, and many of them have contributed excellently in this service. So I am also trained in IMC. We have set global footprints through developmental journalists, a course that the IMC introduced in the year 1969. We have trained students from about 127 countries through this course. Media definitely has immense power. Mahatma Gandhi ji once said, "The sole aim of journalists should be service." The newspaper is a great power, but just as an unchained torrent of water submerges whole countryside and devastates crops, even so an uncontrolled pen serves but to destroy. If the control is from without, it proves more poisonous than want of control. It can be profitable only when exercised from within. These words of Gandhi ji connects to our today's topic of lecture, role of media in promoting peace, cordiality and social amity. To discuss this topic, we have with us an eminent journalist, Shri Ashok Tandon ji, who has been media advisor to the former Prime Minister, Shri Atal Bihari Vajpayee ji, and presently is the member of the Prasar Bharati board. He is going to explain how the media can play a constructive role in promoting peace, cordiality and social amity. I once again welcome Shri Ashok Tandon ji at IMC campus and request him to enlighten all of us. Ashok ji.
Since Dr. Bhatnagar has just announced the opening of, we can say, opening of the Diamond Jubilee of our institution, what could be better than in the leadership of her? I just wanted to, share some information about her experience of the past. So she has been, worked not in administration, but she has directly, she had been a part of news processing and administration and teaching, not teaching, but the university system as well. So I just wanted to highlight, her experience with all of us. So she holds experience in administration, policy making, and news processing. She has been Secretary, Press Council of India. She also had been ADG, Director, News Service Division, All India Radio. Her responsibility included the finalization of major news bulletins and monitoring the news content and delivery. She also worked as Director, Directorate of Higher Education, Ministry of Human Resource Development. In this position, Dr. Bhatnagar contributed in framing policy on internationalization of higher education, anti-ragging policy, reservation policy in higher education, and autonomous councils. She represented MHRD in the boards of various central and deemed universities. So you can now understand why I pointed out this. So we are also hopeful, ma'am. So under your leadership, I'm sure we all are sure that we are going to grow more. So thank you so much. And for this lecture on role of media in promoting peace, cordiality, and social amity, who could be a better person than Mr. Ashok Kumar Tandon ji? He is a veteran journalist, columnist, and political commentator with nearly 50 years' experience in journalism, media relations, and media academics. A postgraduate in political science from Delhi University, he has worked in various positions, including PTI Bureau Chief in London, and later as diplomatic editor, PTI in New Delhi. During his stint in PTI Bureau Chief in UK, Tandonji was twice president of the Indian Journalists Association, Europe. Sri Tandonji served in Prime Minister Atal Bihari Vajpayee's PMO from 1998 to 2004 as in charge of media relations in the rank of Additional Secretary. At present, he is on the Supreme Court mandated 3-member committee on content regulation in government advertising. So now, sir, I would request, and I apologize that I took your time, but it was something important to share. So, sir, please.
Anupama ji, faculty members, and dear fellow journalists. See, some of you must be wondering why we have chosen this topic. Because generally it is perceived that media, they do their own job of reporting. How can they help in promoting peace, cordiality, and social amity? And this we will understand only if we first try to realize not only what our powers are, what our duties are. Just to elaborate, I would take a few minutes to give you a background of what the media powers are, and then we'll come to the media duties, and that is how we will deal with the topic. So let me first begin with sharing with you, which most of us know, but since we have to set a tone for our lectures, so I will take a few minutes in giving you the background idea. And then, as we know, India is the world's largest democracy, a successful republic, and we have a system of separation of powers among the 3 pillars: legislature, executive, and judiciary, as well as an effective mechanism of checks and balances with provision of a judicial review. I need not explain what judicial review is, we all know about it. See, gone are the days when the Western world used to describe Indian democracy as a ramshackle, maybe due to a continuous one-party rule and one-family rule for the first few decades since independence from the British rule. Barring the only aberration when Indira Gandhi imposed emergency and derailed democracy and suspended the constitution, India has proved to be a shining example of functioning democracy and cooperative federalism, with both the central and the state governments building a new India and the people enjoying power of the ballot through the universal adult franchise. But it is still a long way to go, and we all collectively need to strive to further deepen the roots of parliamentary democracy and at different levels of governance, not only in terms of socio-economic emancipation of all sections of the society and empowerment of women in particular, but also work towards maintaining a strong social fabric reflecting India's unity in diversity. See, and the 4th pillar of democracy, which we are, the media, has a crucial role to play as a watchdog. I firmly believe that most of the Indian media, barring a few exceptions, has been doing its job to a great extent since independence. And I can say without fear of contradiction that the Indian media is second to none in the world in terms of freedom of expression. There are some prophets of doom in our fraternity who keep raising doubts about freedom of press in India. See, India's free press, or media as we know it now, enjoys its power of the freedom of speech and expression from Article 19(1)(a) of the Chapters of Fundamental Rights of the Indian Constitution. Now here I would like to make a point and emphasize that it goes without saying that the same freedom is also enjoyed by all members of the society, all the citizens. That is very pertinent thing. So, when we say the right of speech and expression, and it is applicable to all, but at the same time, the founding fathers of our Constitution cautioned that this freedom is not absolute. Every citizen, including the media, has to enjoy it with certain reasonable restrictions under Article 19(2) of the Constitution. That is how we'll come to our topic of today. See, I would like to give you an interesting anecdote of the Constituent Assembly discussions about Article 19(1)(a). Because when the discussion was going on in the Constituent Assembly about freedom of speech and expression to all citizens, some very important members, they wanted a sub-clause to be added to 19(1)(a) to explicitly say freedom of the press. Now this they got this idea from the First Amendment of the US Constitution, which specifically talked about freedom of the press. But Dr. B.R. Ambedkar, he opposed it and successfully opposed it. He said, no, media should enjoy its powers from Article 19(1)(a) as all other citizens will enjoy. So if we try to give them a specific sub-clause, freedom of the press, and mark my word, this is what exactly transpired in the Constituent Assembly. Dr. Ambedkar said, no sub-clause in the name of freedom of the press. Because you never know, a time may come when the media, and those days we used to call it press, when the press may take this particular subclass as a license and misuse it. Unfortunately, in today's time, we see a section of the media is misusing this 19(1)(a). Imagine if there had been 19(1)(a)(b), they would have definitely used it as a license. So that is exactly what we are going to discuss today. Unfortunately, we see what is happening around in the media. I need not, in fact, explain it. I will later on only quote what our own Supreme Court has said about the functioning of the media. So therefore, then the makers of the Constitution were also apprehensive of the misuse of 19(1)(a), not only by the media but also by the citizens. In the name of freedom of speech and expression, any citizen can do something which is contrary to the law. So 8 reasonable restrictions were added in 19(2), which I am sure many of our faculty members and students may be familiar with it, but we have to, in fact, discuss it. And, that is perhaps maybe the reason why the IMC decided role of the media in promoting peace, etc., to be the topic of discussion today. And on this very August and day of Foundation Day of this prestigious institution, which has the enviable distinction of earning glorious place in communication academia, research, training, and even in media innovation. So I congratulate the IMC Director Anupama Bhatnagarji and her team of dedicated faculty members and staff, and thank all of you for giving me an opportunity to be with you and share my views on this subject, which are of great national importance, with all of you. So having said that, let me first come to those reasonable restrictions, which every journalist must remember all times during his or her profession. Because if we forget those restrictions, which unfortunately many of our fraternity are forgetting, they are flouting, violating day in and day out. So therefore we need to remind ourselves. And that is when I will come to this topic straight away. So these reasonable restrictions I will simply go through it. The interest of the sovereignty and integrity of India, the security of the state, friendly relations with foreign states, public order, decency or morality are in relation to contempt of court, defamation, or inciting are incitement to an offense. Now, I will deal, because of the topic, only with public order, decency and morality, maybe a bit cases of contempt of court, or incitement of an offense. Now, these restrictions were given to the government of the day to enact laws which may, define punishment in case of violation of these laws. And there are laws. Number of laws have been enacted. Many laws have been amended. Law of defamation, contempt of court, etc. All we know that. But what is happening now? See, we can argue that the maintenance of public order and the rule of law is the functioning of the police, law and order enforcement agencies. What can we do about it? That is the question which may be in the mind of some of us. See, what is happening today? See, if we look around, I have been in fact requested to give you a couple of my own experiences, so I will also deal with the integrity of the state and security of the state. One example I will give you, where media needs to be cautious or where media sometimes violates this particular clause. One example from my own experience during the Kargil conflict. The Prime Minister, I was with the party, Prime Minister party, the Prime Minister Vajpayee visited Kargil. And those who know the Kargil topography, there is hills and the shelling was coming from the top of the hill because Pakistan people had, captured those hills. The shell would not fall on the Leh-Srinagar highway. So it will obviously fall at a distance. So the Prime Minister visit caravan was safe. So we were all very safe when we were in the Kargil village. But what happened? One very enterprising journalist, I need not name, you will understand it when I explain it, somehow with the help of our army top brass, maybe giving assurance that she will not do anything which may be contrary to the security of our armed forces, managed to reach Kargil in her enthusiasm to give a live coverage, and she was asked to station in a bunker. We must have heard a term which was coined during the Gulf War, embedded journalists. Now, embedded journalist is one who, remains with the armed forces, but embedded in a bunker, and will report only what he or she is told to report with her security. So she will not be able to, or he will not be able to move. Now, this enterprising journalist was stationed in a bunker. When the Prime Minister entourage reached, she came out of the bunker, and those days there were no mobile phones. There was only sat phone. And she carried a sat phone. From there she did a piece to, I don't know whether she had a camera or not, but she did phono. And after that, she left, maybe whatever the arrangement was. Within 15 minutes, there was bombing right at that very particular place, and many of our soldiers were killed. Now, there was court of inquiry, but I don't want to go into it. So this is exactly where our role comes in, and this is one example of where our own security, country's security, integrity was involved. Now, in our over-enthusiasm, and just to be first with the news, or to show to the world how enterprising he or she is, this was a gross violation of 19.2, one aspect of 19.2. And incidentally, what happened was, when there was terror attack in Mumbai, and we all know what happened, so I don't want to quote that example. Our journalists, particularly the electronic media journalists, were showing to the world what the terrorists are doing. And we know, without realizing, that somebody was monitoring that, and guiding the terrorists. But that is not the story which I want to share with you. The naval chief of that time, Admiral Bhagwat, was so upset with the coverage of the Mumbai terror attack at that time that one of his press conferences, he disclosed the Kargil incident and named the journalist, because almost identical things were happening. And when he named the journalist, not only the journalist, but her channel also filed a defamation suit against the naval chief. Now, why I am saying is, when it comes to us, we go for a defamation case, but day in and day out, all of us are flouting defamation, celebrities, privacy of people, and, to be first with the news. All sorts of violations we do, but when it comes to us, without realizing that it was a blunder which she committed, she and her channel had the audacity to file a defamation case against the naval. Why did you name that journalist? I hope I have made the point clear. So that was one point which related to the security of the nation. Mumbai attack coverage plus the Kargil incident. So this is where our role comes in. And if I remember correctly, all of us were praising the television journalists who were covering Mumbai terror attack. See, our journalist, our reporter has not eaten anything for the last 36 hours. They are giving you a minute-to-minute coverage. This is, see, look here, they entered. We all know what happens. Even now, that kind of thing is happening. But nobody at that time, from within the media, took up the courage to say, no, this is wrong journalism. We are not supposed to be doing it. Our job is to cover the news, but not to the extent that it undermines security of the nation or our security forces. That is one area where we can discipline ourselves. I will come to the other aspects, but at the same time, the problem with journalists, budding journalists like some of you sitting here is, and many students do come to us, sir, you told us about this thing, that we should be disciplined, we should be careful. But when we work in a channel or a newspaper, we are asked, no, go and do it. Forget about defamation. We will see it. But be the first with the news. Even if you have to violate all sorts of laws. And that is exactly what is happening. When a reporter joins a television channel, bring the news first. Whether you violate any law, secrecy, all sorts of things. We are not bothered about it. So in the process, what happens is, when we joined print journalism, we were told, you cannot name a person who has been arrested or whose house has been raided till the person is produced before a court of law within 24 hours. Now what is happening today? Even before the raid takes place, media comes to know about it. Channels and cameras are stationed outside the house of that person, whoever he or she may be, maybe big business. And then within seconds, not only the name of the person is out, his entire dossier is out before the country. Now, this is what we call in journalism is trial by the media. The person is hanged, whosoever he may be. He may be criminal, he may be smuggler. But with our reporting, we have hanged him, finished. Tomorrow if he is released, who is going to restore his or her reputation? So, I will come to that aspect later. But the question is, gradually we should also understand why we have picked up this topic and where is our responsibility. So, our responsibility, many journalists claim, well, we are doing a very fair journalism. We are bringing facts before the nation and it is our duty. We are least bothered whether the person is XYZ or an MP or a minister. If police has raided his house or arrested somebody, we can't wait for 24 hours the person to be produced before a magistrate. That kind of journalism we are now going through. Now, I will give you a very interesting instance about the defamation case, which is being flouted day in and day out by all the media. Unfortunately, print media also has to follow that, just not to miss the news. there is a very historic judgment and involved very, very important people. There was a CPI leader, Mr. Bhupesh Gupta. I don't know, many of you may not even heard of him. He was a Rajya Sabha member and a very, very close friend of Indira Gandhi. Because those days CPI and Congress, they used to have good relations. But Bhupesh Gupta was very frank, outspoken. And those who must have heard a term, caucus. During emergency, a term was coined as caucus. Caucus is ruling the country. And caucus at that time would mean it was Sanjay Gandhi and his coterie. And this caucus term was coined by Bhupesh Gupta in Parliament. He was a Rajya Sabha member. Now, outside Parliament, you know, the privilege of Parliament is that if you say something, abuse somebody, say whatever you want to say against a member, you are privileged. Nobody can take you to the court. That is why invariably members say, बाहर जाके बोलो ये बात, हाउस में बोल रहे हो, बाहर जाके बोलो, मैं देख लूंगा. Bhupesh Gupta in a public meeting made such a disparaging remarks and attacked Indira Gandhi left and right that she was so upset, she filed a defamation case against Bhupesh Gupta in a court of law. Beyond imagination, even in those days, Bhupesh Gupta's story was covered by Hindustan Times. So a notice was given to Hindustan Times. Hindustan Times in the affidavit said it was a PTI story. We have verbatim quoted the news agency. When notice was given to news agency, they said we have a tape recorded version of Mr. Bhupesh Gupta's speech. All his allegations are with us as a proof. So you can't hold us for defamation. Then hearing went on and matter ultimately reached the Supreme Court of India. Friends, believe me, Supreme Court held, which nobody listens these days. Even if we try to teach you, nobody will listen. Court said, if a defamatory statement has been made by a person, also reported by a newspaper, and carried by a news agency, all of them are to be hauled under defamation. You cannot say just because somebody abused the Prime Minister, you reproduce what he said, you cannot be absolved of the law of defamation. Can you imagine in today's words what is happening on our television channel, debates, hate speech, whatever it is? Just because somebody has said, even in some kind of a hidden camera, out within four walls of a meeting, that stuff is reproduced within seconds and minutes on all the channels. Because they say, okay, take us to the court, but we have to be first with the news. Why should we bother about defamation? So the law of defamation is so clear that any utterance made by a person which violates the law should not be reported. Because if you report it, you are equally liable to the defamation law. Now this remains only a lecture nowadays. Nobody will listen to us. Because some couple of our students came back, sir, you said don't do it, and I was thrown out my channel. Because you missed the news. He said, I tried to explain before 24 hours, person's arrest, we can't name him. He said, who told you this? We were taught in our lecture. Forget about it. If you want to work here, we want, in fact, before the raid is made, you should know who is going to be raided. You should have contacts in the Enforcement Directorate. That kind of journalism we are experiencing today. So this is where we talk about our role. And I know this is not going to be of any help to any journalist. But still, we have to talk about it. So before I come to what is happening on our television channel panel discussions, abuses, hate speech, unfortunately, some of the channels engage such people, pay them to come on the channel, make abuses, tu मैं. Otherwise, who will look our channel? Who will see our channel? Unfortunately, that is the era we are referring to. But certain very sensitive things, we will have to be very careful. Because I will simply quote what the Supreme Court said. I will not have to explain further. And this is a very recent comment made by the Supreme Court of India. And I will quote that. television channel anchors were conducting the panel discussions, what they are doing is critical in monitoring that their shows do not descend into a flurry of hate speech. The court said the content on mainstream electronic media and social media remains largely unregulated. On TV, it is the duty of the anchors to prevent hate speech. The court wondered why the government continues to remain a mute spectator to hatred peddled in the electronic media. He said the Supreme Court has been consistent in its efforts to stop hate on TV. In January 2021, the then Chief Justice S.A. Bobde had said that arresting hate on television was an essential for law and order, as arming policemen with lathis and putting up barricades to prevent the spread of violence and riots. Fair and truthful reporting normally is not a problem. The problem is when it, that is broadcast program, it is used to agitate others. There are broadcast programs that definitely have the effect of instigating people, not just against one community, but against the other community, but any community also. And why are you blind to them, Mr. The court is asking the government of the day. You don't do anything about it. So, this is the state of affairs. Now, what possibly can create a law and order situation? Caste riots, clashes, just because our reporting is instigating them. So I have quoted the Supreme Court of India. They are also worried about it. The government is also worried about it. But the media is not worried about it. The moment government says, we will, if you don't regulate yourself, we will regulate you. Suddenly all the organizations of the media will say, no, 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 no. No government regulation. We will have our own code of conduct. So any government law is violation of the freedom of speech and expression, and therefore we have our own code. And we know there are codes by the Broadcasters Association, so and so. But what is happening, I need not go into it. But I will give a very interesting example, which all students of journalism, including teachers, must look at it. And it pertains to the famous phone hacking scandal in UK. It's a very interesting test case about freedom of speech and the concern and the kind of atmosphere, animosity it can create in a society. See, there was the famous phone hacking scandal, if I may take a few minutes about that, because this is a very significant case. And since it happened in UK, which is considered to be the mother of all democracies. See, a toddler of a celebrity was kidnapped. If I compare that celebrity without, any disrespect to any celebrity of India, of film industry, you can think of the topmost celebrity of the Indian film industry. She was so upset, and the entire government and the entire police machinery was working to trace that little girl. 2 days later, the News of the World tabloid, which was owned by Rupert Murdoch, reported a private conversation of that celebrity with one of her friends, which carried lot of private conversation, and that was reproduced verbatim in a tabloid. She was furious. How could News of the World get to know my 10 minutes conversation with my friend about the entire episode? The matter was investigated. The reporter was hauled up. And it turned out to be that the verbatim conversation was supplied to the tabloid by a telephone content provider service, like we have our. Then further investigation revealed that this tabloid was regularly paying a hefty fee to that telephone company to monitor the private conversations of celebrities and leak it to the tabloid to make it a juicy reading. Matter went up further. Just to, try to stop the whole thing from becoming big, huge scandal, reporter was asked to resign. The police said no. Editor was asked to resign. Rupert Murdoch's daughter, who was handling and managing that newspaper, then was asked to face the charges. She also resigned, just to cover up. It went on and went on. And the paper was, in fact, stopped from public. Rupert Murdoch tried to save his own empire. He said, no, we are closing down the newspaper. But what I want to share with you is that in the wake of all that, a commission of inquiry was appointed by the British government. And I will like to share with you the report, the recommendations of that. And that exactly applies to India. And time has come and the government of India will have to appoint such kind of a commission if we have to, I will not say control, but regulate the media. Now this was known as Lord Justice Leveson Public Inquiry. Everybody was asked to come and depose before that. So I will not take your time and give you simply a couple of recommendations of that commission. Very true and applies to Indian situation also. So what the commission said was, the report castigated the British media for its behavior, which it said often wreaked havoc in the lives of innocent people. A time has come when the watchdog needs to be leashed. And these are the words of that commission in Britain. And subsequently the government did bring a legislation. But again, the British media, particularly the tabloids, if we are all familiar with, the tabloids in UK, they are willing to pay fines of up to £100,000 to the courts or people who have filed defamation case, but can't afford to miss a juicy story about the celebrities in the UK. That is what the tabloid journalism is. Luckily, we don't have tabloid journalism in India. People did try in a couple of decades ago, but unfortunately that has not worked. So what I'm trying to say is that if media has become fearless and they are not bothered about the law, which is happening in India also. If somebody takes you to the court for defamation, later on you apologize. Simple. I will give you another example, which is very interesting. If some people remember Beaufort's case, one Swedish newspaper reported that Amitabh Bachchan was also involved in the Beaufort's case and he also shared the money. And that Swedish newspaper report was picked up by one of news agencies, not the normal regular news agencies, but I can even name that Indo-Asian News Service was the news agency at that time, which is now India Abroad News Service. It reported it and appeared in number of newspapers in India. Amitabh Bachchan wanted to file a defamation case. He realized that in India, if you file a defamation case, you will never see the light of the day. He filed it in London. And in the judicial system in London is, if the court takes up one case, they dispose it up in 5 hearings or 10 hearings without taking up any other case. No postponement. See, the case was decided. Then we all intervened. I was president of the Indian Journalists Association at that time. I said, can't we have an out-of-court settlement? We pleaded with Amitabh Bachchan. He said, okay, if an apology which is drafted by your association and accepted by the court, it should be reproduced by the same news agency and it must appear in India. And the apology was accepted So he got justice. But when it came to paying the fee of the advocate, and it was running into thousands of pounds, the law firm said, no, out of court settlement doesn't mean you will not pay my fee. And the publication said, we don't have money. So better close it down, rather pay the court fee. So there is a remedy. But unfortunately in India what is happening is that we are least bothered about law of defamation, law of contempt. Now decency and public order actually is mainly our subject, which we have to discuss. Now what is happening during caste riots, communal riots, all sorts of clashes which we see every day, whether it is Manipur or Nu, what is our role? We think our role is to be first with the news, to reach there, give as much of footage as possible, inside story, etc., etc. But we forget that sometimes our coverage is inciting further violence, further clashes. Now, many of us can say, no, we don't name the communities, but when we show footage, you can immediately identify the community, and that incites the other community, and the clashes and riots get further aggravated. So what should we do? Should we not report it? So these are some questions which we have to. Rape victims, we all know what happened. Very shameful incident which I wish to share with you. In a very famous rape victim case, the family and the victim was literally held hostage by a channel. Interviewing the family, with the covered face, etc. We know how the channels do. That's not the story. The other channel who was waiting outside to get the same family and the rape victim went on waiting, and the channel who was holding her waist, they will not let her go. Khana khilao, chai pilao. And the other channel people went to the police. Sir, unko bandi bana ke rakha hua hai. See, imagine. And the police intervened. They said, no, ये अपनी मर्जी से बैठे हैं. Family member said, इन्होंने हमें इतने पैसे दिए हैं और ये कहा कि दूसरे चैनल के पास नहीं जाना. ये हो रहा है हमारे देश में. क्या करेंगे? So all these sensitive cases, sensitive incidents of violence, which are basically. So the question all of you will arise that what should we do? I will come to the point to tell you first what we should not do before what we do. As journalists, my advice to most young journalists always has been that first of all we should be well read, we should understand the profession we are entering. Unfortunately, many boys and girls are entering this profession because of glamour. Anchor banenge, this and that. And I will give you an instance what is happening in our own fraternity. There is very interesting incident which happened during the third front government, perhaps long before some of the students were even born. Those days, television, cameras and reporters were allowed to go right up to the main gate of Parliament House. So one very enterprising journalist, new to the profession, she went there. The person who came out of Parliament, he gave a bite. Everybody took and dispersed. Now this enterprising journalist goes up to the leader and says, sir, will you please identify yourself? Believe me, the person who was standing there said, unfortunately, my name is Indrajit Gupta and I am the Home Minister of the country. 11-time Lok Sabha member Indrajit Gupta was the Home Minister of the country and one enterprising journalist. Indrajit Gupta was a Bengali. Reporter also happened to be a Bengali. Now what should she do? She would have done. She would have consulted her fellow colleagues. Sir, I am new to this reporting. Please tell me who this fellow was. And no, go straight to the person. No, these kind of shameful incidents have been taught, I think, to number of batches. All of us have been telling. Just to remind that we should be well read. We should know what is happening, which beat we are going. Even if we know little about it, we have all the options of exploring and talking about and consulting our own colleagues. No, there are so many incidents I can go on and on, but the moot idea is, now when we are covering a riot or a violent incident, now these are cautions to the young journalists, nothing to do with that. We should always be standing the side of the police force. Now some enterprising young girls and boys will go into the crowd and try to get bite of those who are agitating. And if there is a police firing lathi charge or tear gas, we will become victim of it. So we have to be careful about our security. And moreover, the authorities who are with us, at least they recognize that we are a journalist. Whether it is DCP, ACP, they know that. So some of these precautions we need to take. But then there are goof-ups. In one case, again a young enterprising reporter was covering an agitation in Parliament Street, and there was later on a judicial inquiry. Some people perhaps died. He was asked, how did you know that there was a police firing? He said, no, I went there, I saw somebody firing, and I rushed to my office and said, flash, 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 police opened fire. But it was a tear gas shelling. Now, these are some of the experiences which I was telling you. So, no, I was in fact requested to share with you a couple of instances when I was in the Prime Minister's office, but since I had a long experience of covering courts, crime reporting, and all sorts of... so I will give you an instance of plane hijacking. We all know that. What happened? The government decided to exchange the terrorists with the Indian Airlines plane passengers. I think I need not go into that. One enterprising young lady reporter somehow got into the plane before it was to take off. Now this is not known to many people. In fact, I have not even shared with anybody. This is going to be part of my memoirs, but I can share with you. How she entered into the plane, nobody knows. I got a phone call from agitating reporters outside. So and so has got into the plane just to interview the terrorist. What to do? Because the terrorist was to be escorted in the plane within another 15-20 minutes or half an hour. And she will not listen to anybody. So I was communicating with the people on telephone. I said, is there any lady police around at the airport? Summon those lady officers and physically lift that reporter and throw her outside the aircraft. She can't be allowed to travel in the plane up to Kandahar. Can you imagine? No, how she was allowed, I don't know. I think by now most of you have understood which enterprising reporter I am talking about. There has been only one enterprising reporter in the Indian television channel. Now imagine, I asked that time the foreign minister, Mr. Jaswant Singh, who was accompanying. I said, sir, what is happening? So there was no answer. How she breached the security, how she entered the aircraft. But she had to be literally, physically lifted and put on the ground by the lady police. Now, there I can give you so many instances of how the media used to function those days. But that's not one instance I will give you. Again related with the security. One very enterprising celebrity journalist called me at night. Sir, I am told war has broken out between India and Pakistan in the Poonch sector. I said, how do you know? No. There are reports from one of the news agencies that there is continuous firing going on in Poonch area. I told him politely, I have worked with PTI. invariably every week or so, our stringer will file the story that exchange of fire is going on in Poonch area. And that has been there for the last so many 40 years, 30 years. So please ignore it, and this is a routine thing, and such exchange of fire continues on the water. He said, no, I have to file a story. War has broken out. He will not listen. I said, okay, so far we are talking as a friend. Now let's talk professionally. You ask me the question, I will answer. He said, I want yes or no, whether war has broken out or not. I said, you better talk to the defense ministry. The Prime Minister office has got nothing to do with it. You report it, go and report. No, sorry sir, I just wanted to confirm. I said, then why are you not listening to me? With my so many years experience in PTI, invariably stringer will say, sir, firing has opened up. Firing used to, in fact, even today, exchange of fire continues on the water. So what I am trying to say is that what kind of precaution do we take in, realizing that our report can not only compromise the security of the nation, it can create havoc, as the Levinson Commission report said. So the question is, what should we do? Now, what we should do and what we should not do, we have to be very careful. But one thing I would say to the journalists, that please gain an experience of at least 5 years in print media before you enter electronic media. Otherwise, what happens today is, I will give another example, if not time permitting. One of my students joined a television channel, and during my, I somehow told them that I have been to Kedarnath as a journalist. So the topic of the television channel was opening of the doors of Kedarnath shrine. And they had sent an OB van to cover it live. And they said, sir, please you come as a guest and explain. So I went there. The anchor, she was getting ready. She said, sir, if you don't mind, can you please explain to our audience why the doors of Kedarnath are closed? I said, you must have been given something by your research team, because normally that's the practice. She said, sir, I could not read that because I had to spend so much of time in the makeup room. I said, you are going to anchor a live program with your OB van there, and you do not know anything about it. Sorry, sir, you be here for an hour and you continue to explain it. And the co-producer of the program, who was my student, he said, sir, the moment program starts, within few minutes, she will ask him, वहाँ माहौल कैसा है? Because इससे ज़्यादा वो बोल ही नहीं सकती. माहौल कैसा has become a cliche in television journalism. Because the anchor is not well read, she doesn't know. दूसरा, a meeting is going on, maybe even a cabinet meeting. The anchor will ask the reporter, who or she is standing outside, अंदर क्या हो रहा है? कुछ बताइए अंदर की क्या खबर है? Now he can't say, madam, I am standing outside. How do I know what is happening? No, and he has to say something, poor fellow. Something he has to say. So that kind of journalism, if we really want to avoid, please for God's sake work at least for 5 years in print media. Will you believe me, all the prominent television personalities of today, they are all product of the print media. You name anyone who is on top of the position. They have all worked for 10 years, 15 years in the print media. Rajdeep Sardesai has worked for at least 10 years in print media. Rajat Sharma has worked for 10 years in print media. You name anyone. Because that is where you read. You gather your facts. Now what is happening today? Young reporter or television reporter, he or she is asked at 7 o'clock, you go there and stand outside that leader's house. If she says, sir, what is the occasion? There you will find out there. Now the poor boys and girls, they will go and stand outside. Nothing is happening, some meeting is... No, phone will... Okay, you forget about it, go to Nada's house. Sir, what will happen there? That you try to find out there. That is exactly what is happening. Because you don't have time to read newspapers also. Most of the television reporters, they don't have time. Poor people, I really pity. They don't have time even to get up to date with the newspaper. So what do you expect from there? Andar mahal kaisa hai? So if we have to be careful about everything, including all these things. So we have to be very, very not only careful but also up to date. Now I will just conclude with give you a couple of tips. The moment you become a journalist, in fact, even when you are a student of IMC, you are already a journalist, such a prestigious institution. But the moment you join a newspaper or a channel, you become an important person without realizing. Till yesterday, all of you were ordinary citizens. The moment you become a journalist, you become very important. So much so that there will be so many people trying to pamper you just to get favor from you for reporting. And that includes cocktail parties of the embassies, gifts. If I go into that, we'll have to spend another hour into it. So what should we do? No, I invariably tell my students wherever I go, why do the embassies throw cocktail parties? Which at some stage, all of you will have also to go. No, somebody as an ambassador of a particular in Argentina is posted as ambassador in India. No, he or she doesn't know anything about India. And she is expected or he is expected to know everything about India. So what do? They throw cocktail parties. After 2-3 drinks, journalists, as we know, they are very prompt in, talking and discussing everything under the sun. And then some topic will say about the ruling party. We will tell everything about what we know about the ruling party. With 2-3 such cocktails, the person, the ambassador in the night will, note down everything and send a report. Up-to-date report on who the Mayawati is or who Mulayam Singh was. Everything knowing about the Indian politics. In just couple of months, his headquarters will say, what a diplomat he is. A complex society like India, he has understood even the party system. Because the journalists will divulge everything after 3-4 drinks. And that sometimes includes a very sensitive information also. So therefore, when we become journalists, we have to be very careful about everything. We are not ordinary citizen, no longer ordinary citizen. Pressures will come. बच्चे का स्कूल में दाखला करा दो, चालान माफ करा दो, film festival के पास ला दो. These are very minor things, which all of us have to do. I have also done it. But that should be okay. But sensitive things. मेरे पड़ोसी को जेल में भिजवा दो, वो किराया नहीं दे रहा, something like that. These things we do face because we suddenly become important. Diwali gifts. Very interesting story in a journalist colony in Delhi. Wife complains to the husband, तुम्हारे पास तो मिठाई का डिब्बा तक नहीं आया, अब पड़ोस में सुबह से चल रहा है, आए जा रहे हैं. And he said, lady, he is an economic journalist, every corporate sector will pamper him. I am poor, a political reporter. So, why I am saying is that when we become a journalist, not only we have to be sensitive about the 8/19(2) restrictions, which we have to follow. Now, I will not go into social media and all these things because because of the time constraint, but I will conclude with just one thing, because Indian media itself is facing a lot of crises, and these are very, very serious crises, and these crises are layoff, pay cuts. Actually, the best of journalism is shrinking, yielding to crude prime time spectacles. All of you in the media, we in the media, we have finest young reporters, columnists and editors working in various disciplines, and sustaining journalism of the quality which we need we will have to think about it. And we have to do it. The profession itself will have to do it. Otherwise, no, I'm not trying to discourage the young journalists who are entering this profession. The same thing is applicable to other professions also. Medicine, what happens? Forced cesareans. You know, you have to, set targets. So no profession is like that. So we are entering this profession. It is still a noble profession. So we have to make it noble with our own consistent effort. We will have to stand up also sometimes. Even if we have to lose a job. Sexual harassment cases. In our profession, 2 top editors are facing criminal charges. So that means the girls should run away from this profession? No, we will have to stand up and face these challenges. So like that, there are going to be challenges in every aspect of this profession. But we have to face it, having entered this profession. But we will have to stand up against, if some, wrong kind of assignment is being given to us, we will have to say, no, sorry, I can't do that. But unfortunately, so we have to preserve our jobs, so we have to adjust, but not compromise beyond a certain limit, where the security of the country, our own pride, our own integrity is involved. So that is what we normally tell our journalists, budding journalists. But the factual positions, whether it will change or whether it will go from bad to worse, very difficult to say. But these challenges are bound to be there in this profession. So please be prepared for it and face it, and do enjoy this profession. It is a very rewarding profession. Nothing is gone. Everything is, we can still sustain ourselves and improve this profession. We have worked hard in those times when the facilities were not there, technology was not there, infrastructure was not there, but things were much better. Now with technology, with all the facilities, everything, things are going from bad to worse, unfortunately. And all our associations like Editors Guild of India, whether it is the Press Council, we do discuss in Editors Guild of India all these things, but we can't find an answer. So therefore, I leave it to you what to do, whether to face these challenges, but please don't run away from this profession. It is still one of the best professions, and I do hope that you will enjoy it, and with all the best wishes to all of you in your profession. Thank you very much.
Thank you so much, sir, for your enlightening lecture. You started with conceptual understanding of reasonable restrictions. You told us about our responsibilities. You talked about the professional practices with ethics, and more of it, you talked about the thin line between right and wrong, which has to be identified by the journalists and also to be highlighted by the media educators. So thank you so much, sir, for your lecture today. Now I would request Dr. Nimish Rustagi, ADG IMC, to propose a vote of thanks. Dr. Nimish Rustagi is ADG IMC and also ADG in the Press Information Bureau headquarters at New Delhi. Prior to this assignment, Dr. Rustagi was the Deputy Press Secretary to the former President of India, Sri Ramnath Kovind. In his 2-decade-long career in the Indian Information Service, he has served in different positions in PIB, CBC, Cabinet Secretariat, and Indian Institute of Mass Communication. Sir, I would request you to propose a vote of thanks.
First of all, many congratulations to all of you and on this Foundation Day. We were very lucky to have Mr. Ashok Tandon today. He's one of the most eminent journalists, so we were very happy that he was able to make time. Sir spoke about very important things. Always remember that we are a democracy. We have a right to freedom of expression, but that comes with great responsibility. That's the message I got. And media mindfulness is very important. Be mindful of what is the responsibility entrusted to media. don't smear reputations, respect the law, including law of defamation. Sir, you said that when you were talking to us, you said that I know this will not work. Will not be of any help to any journalist. That's what you said when you were talking about ideals and morality. I know that this will not be of any help to any journalist. These are your verbatim your words. Having said that, sir, I think it's important to hold on to cherished values. Whatever may be the behavior on the ground, it is the ideals which lead us to a better future. So I beg to differ from you, sir, and I don't think that was your intention also to say that this will not be of any value. Sir kept on talking about prepare, learn, do your research, be ready, introspect, and improve. These were the highlights of what came out from your talk to us. Thank you very much, sir, for being here. I also take this occasion to thank Anupma ma'am, our DG, for guiding us in this event. Professor Pramod, Professor Rachna, all faculty members, and all of you who have worked hard to make today's event successful. I just wish that IMC keeps up doing the good job, may it grow further and get stronger with each passing day, so that we can serve this noble profession better each day. As sir said, it's the fourth pillar. It's a very important pillar, and the times are not times are going to get tougher, but so we have to get tougher also. Thank you very much.
Thank you so much. So now I declare this session closed. Thank you.